Hello, hello, and welcome to the International Mastermind Association Think and Grow Rich show. My name is Galen Bingham. I'm the leadership strategist, and I get the privilege to being one of the co-hosts in today's show. We do this every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are so excited that you are going to be joining with us as we walk through this incredible book, Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill in 1937. And this has become almost the cornerstone to most success philosophies that you hear about today. So we are excited to bring this to you. Today, we're going to be focused on the brain, which is a broadcasting and receiving station of thought. It's also the 12th step to riches. And as I said, each week we walk through one of the principles with our co-hosts and with a special guest. Today is going to be no exception. Before I bring in my co-host, because Ms. Ann McNeil is in Japan at the moment, so she's not going to be joining us. But before I bring in Dr. Peter, I want to read something from page 221 on this in this version of the book. So if you got this version, turn to page 221, and down towards the bottom, it says, sometimes people speak highly. People speak lightly of the intangibles, the things which they cannot perceive through any of their five senses. And when we hear them, it should remind us all that we are controlled by forces which are unseen and intangible. The whole of mankind has not the power to cope with, nor to control the intangible force wrapped up in the rolling of the waves of the ocean. Man has not the capacity to understand the intangible force of gravity, which keeps this earth suspended in midair and keeps man from falling from it. Much less the power to control that force. Man is entirely subservient to the intangible force which comes from the thunder storm, and he is just as helpless in the presence of the intangible force of electricity. Nay, he does not, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to say it slowly. Nay, he does not even know what electricity is, where it comes from, and what its purpose. So quite a bit from that text, but that really kind of sets up this conversation. Dr. Peter, man, welcome to the show, and talk a little bit about how do you manage leveraging these things that you can't even see. You might not even understand them fully, but you leverage them every day in order to accomplish the things that you do and at an incredibly high level.
Galen, so excited to be here today. Hey, folks, Dr. Peter A. James here, the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. And Galen just did a little bit of that for us right there. He shifted our mindset to things that we don't normally think about. But Galen, before we dive on into that, I'm so excited. Once again, Ann McNeil has been gallivanting around this planet and she has left us the keys to the castle. So we can do whatever we want. And what do you say we just have a holiday party? A
Hey,
holiday party, man. Is that cool?
I got some goodies. I think you got some goodies. Let's just share some goodies.
I'm gonna turn on Stevie Wonder and some Wham, and we will just get it rocking in just a little bit. She just don't even know what she did. She just doesn't even know. But so excited to be here as we dive on into another principle, another chapter of Think and Grow Rich. This one is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station for thought. And we take our brain for granted. And I love that segment that Galen just read at the beginning there that really talks about the different layer or level of the brain that we don't normally reflect on. As the book states there, Galen, this is a broadcasting station that we have sitting right on top of our shoulders. This is a powerful organ that we probably don't even use 100% of, nearly 100% of. So I wonder how we might be able to begin chipping away at this and using it more effectively and efficiently every day, beginning right now. What do you think, Galen?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Plus, not only do we get to hang out with each other, which is always a treat for me. That's why I try to connect with you at every opportunity that I get.
Yeah.
But we get to hang out with more brilliant, amazing guests, and today's going to be no exception. We've got Sherry Ann Bruckner, and we're going to bring her in just a second. But she's a mediator. She's an attorney. She works with leaders and organizations to create peace, resolve conflict, and transform visions into results. Man, sounds like she could be a coach too, because
Hmm.
she's doing all the stuff, all the right things. She's got an upcoming book called Lessons from Lonzo, which will be released in just a few weeks. With that, Sherry, I'd love to bring you in. Come on in, Sherry. We're gonna break some rules here. What are you
Hello.
doing?
Yes, let's break some rules.
Talk a little bit about your background, because I mean you are a mediator, you're an attorney, you work with leaders. Peter and I work with leaders too, but you're at a different angle. You got a different perspective. Talk a little bit about what's brought you to what you're doing now.
You know, Gail and Peter, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. It's just a delight to be here. And I love that I get to be a mediator. When I was in law school, I loved mediation. I loved going into the courtrooms and sitting with people before their cases were heard and helping them figure out solutions. And then way turned on to way, I practiced law for 20 years and finally in 2019 opened my own mediation practice. What's interesting is I've actually been pulled back into the practice of law recently and find that a part of me wanted to leave because of the lack of freedom, that sense of freedom. And we have like these core needs and core values that is really at the heart of every conflict. And so as I think with and use my own brain, I realized, oh, well, that was my conflict with that practice was my own basic need for freedom. And when we get to the heart of an issue for anyone, what it's really, really about, that's where we come up with the conflict resolution rather than a short-term solution. So I'm really happy to be here and love talking about the brain because it's really at the heart of all these conflicts, people face.
Yeah, I love too the way that you've brought in the fact that it's usually relatively easy to see and know when you've got conflict with other people, when there's conflict between people, but you could have conflict with yourself, right? You could have conflict with what this small voice is telling you to do, and your fears, and your fears are not wanting you to do, and that's usually your brain speaking to you, that receiving and broadcasting station that Peter talked about earlier. So can't wait to get into this conversation. Peter, before we jump in, I would love for you to kind of cue up this video where we talk about all the principles, because although the brain is incredibly well studied and we still don't know a whole lot about it, this also fits into a larger philosophy. So if you could cue up that conversation, that would be great.
Absolutely, Galen. You know, you and I, every single week, along with Ann McNeil, we join together and form this mastermind group here. And we dive on into these principles by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich, these 13 principles. And we are very blessed to be able to do so, to do a deep dive into it, because despite what many think about this title and this text, it's really not even just about getting wealthy. It's more about how to think, how to shift your mindset, if I could, how to really think differently in order to accomplish your goals and your objectives. And as Galen had mentioned in the outset, this text is the cornerstone of so many other individuals' books, articles that you read on a regular basis. If you go down and dig a little bit more, you'll find some of the roots, some of the background in this text right here. We just happen to go straight to the text. So without further ado, give a listen to this video and allow it to help you reflect on how these 13 principles should play out in your life.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Alrighty, that's our video that we play every single week that kind of gives us that great overview of Think and Grow Rich. And Sherry, I want to bring you back into the conversation right now. You are no stranger to this show by any means, and we would love to hear, especially from your background and this chapter, the brain. In this brain chapter, one of the things that I really admire about Napoleon Hill, he talks about utilizing other people's brain power as well. It's great to even brainstorm and have a problem and sit around and ask others, hey, what are your thoughts? And on page 224, Napoleon Hill says, in doing that, this procedure is very simple. You sit down at a conference table, clearly state the nature of a problem you have under consideration, then begin discussing it. And each person contributes whatever thoughts that they may occur. The strange thing about this method of mind stimulation is that it places each participant in communication with unknown sources of knowledge, definitely outside of his or her own experience. I guess my question to you there, Sherry, is what does that look like, especially in your legal world, to collaborate and to utilize other people's expertise to support you as you continue to move forward?
Oh, Peter, that's such a great and important question.
Yeah.
Because there are so many options. And I love to invite folks to open up to the possibility that there's more than my solution and their solution. It's got to be one way or the other. When we sit and think, what are we really trying to create here? And what are all the possible ways that we could get there that people haven't even thought? Because there's often a third way. That it may be an idea from the folks bringing their ideas together, or like you mentioned, when we pause and bring in that infinite wisdom, there is an answer. And I always tell folks in the mediation world, ideally folks can come up with a resolution on their own because they like it better, they live with it, they're more likely to follow it. But if they don't, the person wearing the black robe will come up with a solution. And usually folks don't necessarily like that. One or both of them are not really happy with it. So when you can come up with your own solutions, it's so important to all areas of life, in your families, in your organizations, everywhere.
Yeah, I love how you even mentioned the pause. Sometimes we rush into decisions. We rush into thinking that we've thought about it all the ways that we could. Galen, and you and I know that very, very well. We bounce ideas off of each other. We gain each other's trust and then try to figure out, hey, what is your thoughts on this problem? So that's a phenomenal way there, Sherry. Thank you so much. Galen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm curious, of all the things that you've studied, all the time that you spent in the legal profession looking at evidence. When were you first exposed to this book, Think and Grow Rich, and when did this book become more than just a book for you?
I have to say, I was resistant to reading this book for a very long time because I grew up with the mindset that rich was bad. Those big shots, those wealthy people, let the stories continue. And finally, I think it was through another mastermind back in like 2017 that I started, like, oh, somebody sent me the book. I got to read it. It's been sitting here. And through that and through Black NSA's mastermind, I really delved into this. And this is applicable to everything, the whole concept. And I think we know that from a practical standpoint, that like we create everything in our lives. But the fact that we can create peace, we can create joy, we can create wealth, whatever you want to create, if you think and you take steps from that thought, from that vision, you can absolutely create anything you want to create. And it's, you mentioned earlier the sharing of the ideas, and I want to share a couple of stories, because just in the last couple of weeks I have leaders reach out to me for consulting. They just want to talk about an issue in their employment, or with an employee, or with someone in their organization. And I had one reach out just a couple of weeks ago and said, yeah, well, this person is up for a promotion. Quite frankly, they don't even belong in this business, but they've been here. We feel like we need to do it because they're a nice enough person. And I said, well, let's pause. Let's think about that. Tell me what happens 3 years from now if you do that, and what happens 3 years from now if you don't do that. And we talked about the fact that they were willing to trade their long-term discomfort for a little bit of temporary comfort. And so one of the things I do is I help people get comfortable with conflict. I'm like, you can either be a little uncomfortable in this conversation right now, or you can have lots of years ahead of you of discomfort. Like, what are you going to choose? And then I had an opposite one where someone was like, the CEO calls and says, I'm going to can this person. I'm tired of them questioning this and that and that. And I'm like, well, tell me, what exactly are they doing, and what role do they play in your organization? They're like, well, they do this and they do that. And I'm like, okay. So you're willing to give all that up because you're a little uncomfortable with this situation right now. So having those conversations and having that outside perspective is so important, because I know I need it. I will phone a friend when I'm in a situation, because I need a different perspective. We need a different set of brain waves looking at the situation.
Wow. Yeah, and one of the things that you've said a couple of times just in this answer is how people are uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. Although we know things might be better for us on the other end, if there's an area of uncomfortability, we don't even want to go there. How uncomfortable is it for you? And we've been talking about these intangible forces. How uncomfortable is it for you to lean on these intangible forces, things that you can't necessarily, you might not be able to explain, right? I can't explain gravity. I can't explain electricity, but I flipped the switch when I came in this morning, right? I'm leaning on those things. How easy is it for you to lean on concepts that you can't necessarily explain?
I'm very grateful that I hold a high level of faith. I am absolutely sure of what I hope for, and I believe in what I do not see. And so I'm very, very grateful. And I have to tell you, when you were talking at the beginning about that story about the waves in the ocean, it immediately took me to another place in time, Galen, when I was in Cancun. And I ignored a red flag. Like many other people, I just followed the crowd and I went out into the ocean. And all of a sudden, I'm caught in a riptide. All that force that I just wasn't thinking about. And thankfully, I had the wherewithal to just raise my hand, and a lifeguard came out and saved my life and pointed out the red flag. But it's those forces are so powerful, and things can turn in an instant. I mean, that easily could have been a very different outcome for me. And I think we sometimes forget that we are constantly creating. We are constantly in alignment with who we're supposed to be, or getting a little out of alignment with who we're supposed to be. And that's why I love this book so much, because it calls me to be the best version of me. With those questions that make me reflect on who I am and how I'm showing up. And you're like, oh yeah, I can improve. And when I find that I'm working on me and improving me and thinking about who I'm being and how I'm showing up, I don't have time to worry about anybody else. Like it's not from a place of I don't care about other people. It's just I'm not going to be nitpicky about other people because I need to work on me. And I think that's a huge lesson that I've gotten from Think and Grow Rich. That is one of those things when you read the cover, I would retitle this book. When you read the title, it doesn't tell you that because of my brain and my biases about what those things mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Peter, this is tied back to what you said earlier about when we see the word rich, we often automatically go to wealthy. And this book does touch on that, but it's much, much more than that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I want to go there really quick. Before I do, I want to make sure we acknowledge our folks who are on YouTube world. I have Colette, Doretha, good to see everyone this morning. Diane, Shannon, Imelda, thank you all for joining us every Saturday morning as we dive on into this phenomenal text, Think and Grow Rich. So let's stay there. And this is actually going to be a question I'm going to pose to both Sherry and Galen as you reflect on that title, Think and Grow Rich. And I'll start it off. You know, when I was young, the messages or the subconscious messages about being wealthy were that it was bad. Here's what I was taught. All rich and wealthy people are greedy. Making money makes you bad. We saw examples of people on TV or news or that landlord who was just a slumlord. Ebenezer Scrooge. The messages that we continue to get is that wealthy people are inherently bad. So therefore now this Think and Grow Rich pigeonholes people. I want to ask Sherry and Galen, what were those messages? Start off with you, Sherry. What were those messages for you that you can reflect on that maybe even identified that rich and wealthy was not the direction?
I think one of the big ones, Peter, was the idea of money's the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking this week about if I say I love clean drinking water, or I love connecting with my friends, people would be like, oh, that's great. But guess what? I need money to do that. I need money to buy that clean drinking water. I need money to have the telephone to reach out to a friend, or to have the vehicle, to have the gas to go visit a friend. Like it's all energy. And so it's how do I use that money? Am I using it to serve at the best possible level and make lives better for everyone? How am I using that? So yeah, this is so important.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Galen, what about you? What were some of the messages for you coming up around wealth and riches?
Yeah. I can remember that we would have conversations. I must have been 8, 9, 10 years old. And I would hear my folks who loved me and gave me all kinds of resources and opportunities, but they would say, yeah, you really want to study, you want to become really successful, but you don't want to become so successful that you become one of those kind of people, right? And they would leave it there. But in my mind as an 8-year-old, that suggests that there's a limit to success, that once you pass this invisible line of success, then you're going to become something that you don't want to be. I don't know who those kind of people are, and I don't know where the line is, but there's this scary space out there that's beyond this area where you're going to be a part of our family because you become one of those kind of people. And that, again, I had to go through some really, really deep work to understand that was at the foundation of almost everything that I was doing.
Yeah. Here's another phrase that we hear people use all the time. I don't want to be rich. I just want to be comfortable. Right? I want to just have enough money. Right? What is and even in that phrase and that statement, that says that there's a limit because you don't want to go too far because you don't know what might happen. Right? And there goes those messages, those caps that we put on ourselves, and we sometimes just don't even realize it. And so now, as we sit here and even reflect on it using our brain, right? I wonder what it's going to take for us to really just break that wide open, especially heading into 2024 and not looking back on those subliminal messages that maybe have still stuck with us to this day.
Isn't it about letting go of the ideas of good or bad? I mean, so it sounds like we're raised with these messages that rich is bad. So does that make living in poverty good? Like, what? So what is that? What if it's not either good nor bad? Rich is just a state of being. Like, I'm living a rich life when I have clean drinking water, when I have the resources to connect with my loved ones, I love that I have safe and secure and stable shelter. That's huge. And for much of my career, I've worked with clients who are not able to have safe and secure housing or have some other things. So to have a richness of life, I am so happy and grateful. And then I feel that I can uplift others if I have richness. I can use that energy to uplift humanity.
I love it. I can relate to that because it really is about access to resources. In my own family, my mother is amazing. She's getting a little older, and for the past, I'd say 5 years, she's had some breathing problems that she's been taking treatment for. And about a year ago, I got this information about the importance of having the air ducts in your home cleaned every 10 to 15 years. And I got to thinking, wow, my mom has been in her house for 40 years. She bought it from someone. I doubt that person she bought it from had the ducts cleaned. And so I spent money to have the ducts in her home clean. And I went to visit her for Thanksgiving, and none of the breathing problems that I've known her to have, she didn't display any of those. She used to take breathing treatments almost on a daily basis. She said, I haven't taken a breathing treatment in weeks. But it took money for me to do that, right? As nice as the people were that came and did the work, they were not going to do it for free. I had to spend money. And so to your point, Sherry, I just like thinking of money as access to resources. It's access to resources, the ability to do the things that you really want to do for the people that you really want to do them for.
And what I love about that story, Galen, is it was that invisible, that intangible that your mom couldn't see was impacting her life. But the air we breathe, the quality of the air we breathe is so important. And it's so funny because I've been having the same conversation with my mom about cleaning her ducts. It's real. Like I have, and in my last house, I cleaned the ducts regularly, but my mom's like, well, you can't really see that it's an issue, so that's so important. Yes, I love it.
Yeah. I like that last part there, Sherry. We really can't see it as an issue, and even Galen had talked about some of the unseen things that go on in our brain and even in our actions and our behaviors. I know Napoleon Hill says in the book, you may have but 3 factors to bear in mind and apply when you wish to use your brain: subconscious mind, creative imagination, and auto suggestion. And all 3 of those areas, if you think about them, are things that we can't see or even touch. We're kind of having to dwell in another sphere, that subconscious, that superconscious, as I like to call it, if you want to go very, very deep, in order to manifest what it is that we desire to. And we three here, we know the manifestation aspect of Think and Grow Rich in our brain, because we've all been in masterminds and seen the power of masterminds in our own lives, in our own business. As you reflect on that there, Sherry, and utilizing your brain to tap into more, what does that look like for you in the past? And what do you hope it looked like for you in the future?
Oh, it's happening. So one of the things I love to do when I work with small mastermind groups is kind of do a sourcing exercise where we each take a turn putting out a question. And then after the person asks the question, we pause. Everyone at the table is invited to pause and draw in those answers from the infinite, from the divine, from God. And put those all down, and they might not make sense, yet they do. And then everyone shares their list of ideas that they got for the question with the folks involved, and it makes all the difference. And I'm in a small accountability with a couple of people, and two dear friends and colleagues, Lenora and Candace, are part of this accountability group with me. And I'm talking about my book. This is my first solo publication, Lessons from Lonzo. And Lenora messages and says, well, do you have testimonials? Are you getting testimonials? I'm like, I never thought about getting testimonials. Just never crossed my mind. I mean, oh yeah, I'm writing this book. People might want to read it, and I might want to tell people like what impact it has. And just Thursday, I got the most beautiful testimonial from someone who read it, who was really touched by the book. And I put that up on my website link too. And it's just that reminder of, yes, the work we do in the world makes a difference, and we need ideas and experiences from people like Lenora. And Candace had ideas about how the book was formatted, and just bringing in this wisdom and experience and creativity from the people around us, because we can't possibly know everything. And there's people out there who know, have different experiences, have different ideas. And when we draw on that, we make everything better. Like this book publishing experience is going to be better because of colleagues and friends who've helped and supported. Like everything just improves.
I love that. I love that. You know, in this principle, in this chapter in particular, it talks about your invisible counsel, an invisible counselor. Or counsel. And I call mine my invisible board of directors. And there are some members of my board who are living, and I can talk to them. I can reach out to them. One of them happens to be Dr. Peter James. Some of them are people that I've only read about in books, and I anticipate what they might say. How do you leverage not only your physical counselors, but an invisible counsel? How do you leverage that?
You know, for me, I have different members of that too that I turn to. And I believe in angels, and I rely on the wisdom of angels that are sending messages to us at all times. And also authors. One of my favorite books is a book called The Optimist Creed by Christian Larson. And it's brilliant. And what's interesting is as I read this, I realize a lot of authors throughout the centuries have written similar messages, and reframing it in a different way makes all of the difference. And I feel like so much of what we're doing now has been done in a different way in the past. Or some of these messages that we're carrying forward have been given to us in the past, and now we're able to convey them in a different way.
Yeah, I love it. You know, if Anne were here, I can almost imagine Anne saying again that there are some people that will only hear your voice. right? It could be the exact same message that someone else has shared, but if you're not saying it, if you're not saying it in your way, doing it the way that you would do it, there are some people who are going to miss the message altogether. And so that's what I'm getting from you.
Yes. Definitely, definitely. May I take the liberty? I just feel really strongly about something. May I take the liberty to share something from
Please
this book?
do. Please do.
So there's this concept that is talked about in many historical texts that we are spiritual beings. That we are spiritual beings. Some say that that means that we are designed in the image and likeness of God. Some say that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Christian Larson talks about what this means, though. What this really, really means for you and for me is this. Each individual is now in possession of infinite wisdom, infinite power, infinite love, eternal life, perfect peace, everlasting joy, universal truth, universal freedom, universal good, divine wholeness, spotless virtue, boundless supply. Can you imagine what would happen if every human believed, if every single human believed that they contain, that you contain, that everyone contains all of this perfect peace, this everlasting joy, this infinite wisdom? How different our world would be if we saw ourselves and each other through that lens.
Oh my. That
Powerful.
that is incredibly powerful. And the other word that keeps coming to my mind when I was listening to you, Sherry, is there's a responsibility there that I think that might be what is scaring people. I think in our gut, I think everyone senses that we've got the ability to do more. We've got the ability to access more, but at a certain level, we might be afraid of the responsibility. And that's why we say things like, yeah, I could have made $10 million, but you know what? Money isn't everything. We'll say things like that to try to relieve ourselves of the responsibility. Help me with that, Peter.
Yeah, it's making me also think that we put limits as we mature and become adults. We have put limits on ourselves, on our capabilities, on what we can accomplish because of what we are inundated with. So think about it. When you were a kid, the way you dreamed, or daydreamed, which is why sometimes this is dangerous, because kids, when they dream of being Superman, they sometimes try to do Superman stuff, and that's not safe. It's not healthy by any means, right? But they have that imagination that is boundless. As we become adults, that imagination becomes bounded. Perhaps it's because of us remaining safe. Our parents want to keep us safe, go to school, get a good job, right? And so the safety keeps us in a box. And then we operate subconsciously in that box as we go from day to day, month to month, year to year. And we think this is the way it should be. And to Sherry's credit, if we could open that up and realize the potential that exists and the potential that we're not tapping into, I believe we individually but we collectively can accomplish so much more. Right.
And you both hit it on the head with it, that comfort and safety.
Yeah.
And when we find that, oh, well, there's comfort and safety in this known, even though this isn't what we would choose, versus this unknown. But that unknown is likely going to be something even better still. It's stretching us. It's helping us grow into perhaps who we're designed to be when we lean into this vision. I lead retreats on awakening your light and do some workshops on those. And when folks are asked, what would you love? What lights you up? What brings you joy? The ideas are boundless. Like, I'm still working with some people who have gone through retreats, and they're like, still the whole concept that I can create my life is, wow.
Yeah. Hey, let's do it. Let's do just like a 15. Let's create a 30-second retreat like you just described, Sherry. What are some things that you would suggest to people to try to step outside of the any limiting beliefs or limiting boundaries that they've placed on their lives? What are some things that they can do tangibly to step outside of those boundaries?
Well, the first one is to pause. And I usually invite folks to soften your gaze and close your eyes. And imagine that it's 3 years from now. So it is December of 2026. Oh my goodness. It's December of 2026, and you absolutely love your life. You feel so secure that you have all the resources to do all of the things you want to go, to help all the people you want to help, to live the life you love. You have a strong sense of joy. You have a sense of love, that connection with loved ones. You have a sense of creative expression and authenticity. You feel that your life is full of meaning and purpose, and you are at peace and in harmony with the people around you and the world around you. What does that look like? And if you take time to write out exactly what that looks like, and you start living from that vision. So imagine you've written it all down and you are living from that. You are, so a person who is that healthy, what are they doing? How are they behaving? A person who is that peaceful, what are they doing? What are they saying? How are they behaving? A person who's that joyful, all of that. So that's more than a 30-second workshop, but that's kind of the gist.
Oh, that's perfect. That is perfect. Hey, Peter, I want to get your take on that as well. But man, I just noticed all the folks that are checking us out on YouTube and across the social media lines. Doretha is always here. Imelda, Shannon, Diane, Colette, thank you so much for joining us. Peter, what are your thoughts about this idea of a 30-second retreat that will allow you to step outside of your limitations? What suggestions might you come up with?
Yeah, I want to make sure that we acknowledge Donnelly, who's always with us there, Galen, right here on our Zoom webinar for sure. Thanks so much, Donnelly. Hope you're doing well. As Sherry was talking about this 30-second retreat, I went there. And because I love to visualize my future, I love to eliminate all the things that I'm thinking about right now and begin to plan out my goals and objectives and how I would like to be in them, if that makes sense. How I will be when those are accomplished. And that's the visualization that Sherry is talking about. And I went there, and it was great. It was a great feel, even for 30 seconds.
And
right.
I love that you said B, Peter. I just want to pick up on that B, because the B is so important. I think so often in life, we are taught, well, you can't do that. You have to have this and do this to be this. Like, this whole visioning is coming from that other direction. I am going to be this person. I am going to be a person of joy. I'm going to be a person of love. I'm going to be a person of peace. I'm going to be a person of health. And then I do things in alignment with being that person. And then I will have the joy and the peace and the love and the connection and all of that.
Love it. Love it. and Galen and Sherry, you both know that if you desire to step more into that future that you want to design, there's no place to do it like the upcoming annual meeting being held in Pompano Beach, Florida by the Think and Grow Rich International Mastermind Association. So I know I will be there. I know Galen will be there. Sherry, you've been before, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Fortunately, I haven't, and I will be in Costa Rica again at this time, but absolutely go to it. And is the most amazing mastermind leader, guru envisioning. She is living this Think and Grow Rich ideal each and every moment. So go to this annual accountability meeting. I will definitely be there in spirit.
This is the well, you're in Costa Rica, you'll be doing multiple 30-second retreats there, Sherry. So we're not going to knock that by any means. But this is a great opportunity, folks. If you have not ever experienced this opportunity to reflect on where you've come from, but also ensure that you are planning for your future, not just from a business career or a perspective, but in 10 different areas of your life, how to ensure that you are shoring them up. Great example of that is your health. Are you getting those annual checkups? Are you getting those things that you need depending on your age or whatever it is that you need to dive on into? A great example. I'm going too deep now, Galen. I had my colonoscopy earlier this year. Right. But that's just a great example of that time and the things that we need to step into each and every year. But the annual meeting is a great opportunity to be able to do so.
Let me add to that, Peter. Not add to your colonoscopy,
Please don't
but
add to that, man.
but one of the elements that the process encourages you to think about is your recreation, because very often people in business, we want to work hard. We've romanticized this idea of grinding and going after things and getting after it. But we all know that you can chop more trees if you sharpen your saw. And we have a tendency not to do that. So this process, again, to your point, 10 areas. One of the areas is recreation. One of the areas is creativity. How do you live a complete life? And this process, this annual meeting forces you to do that in a way where you've got some accountability around you. So absolutely worthwhile. I want to come back to just kind of both of you guys and ask, what have been some of the major insights that you've gained from this conversation? I'm going to just jump in and just share. Sherry, you haven't said these words, but you kept reminding me of something that one of my teachers told me. And she said, Galen, you get to own all of the limitations that you fight for. So you get to own all of the limitations that you fight for. So if you have in your mind all these reasons why you can't accomplish a thing, you're right. You get to own that. You can't accomplish that thing because of the limitations that you've defined. The opposite is also true. You get to own all of the freedoms that you fight for. So thank you for that reminder. What's been some of your key takeaways?
For me, it's the intangibles. I think we forget that the cleaning the ducts and cleaning our thinking, because we don't always see our thinking. We rarely sit down and write, or sometimes people rarely sit down and write, or actually are aware of their thinking. And I have to catch myself like, oh, what was I thinking? Is that thinking creating what I want to create? And I see it in conflict. Like, it's like I said, like we mentioned earlier, so easy to see in other people, like, oh, well, their thinking is creating that. But what is my thinking creating? And constantly checking in, hey, is that really what I want to create? What thought do I need to be thinking then to create what I want to create? If that's not what. So yeah, paying attention to those intangibles, that air, that energy, the thinking.
I love it. I love it. And how can people get a hold of you if they want to get some technical support from a mediation or conflict resolution standpoint, or if they want to get access to this book that you've got coming? How can people get a hold of you?
Thank you so much, Galen. BrucknerMediation.com. I believe Peter could maybe share the link. Yes, lessons from Lonzo. That's my buddy Lonzo. And I am just so happy and grateful to have been part of his life, and then certainly that he was part of mine. And this book has 63 lessons, and they're fun, easy one-pagers, and you can find it for pre-order on my website, and it will be on Amazon by the 18th of December and other places as well. And so there's ways right there to connect with me, and it would just be a pleasure to connect with you all. Thank you.
Fantastic. And then Dr. Peter, man, what are some key insights that you've gained from this conversation? And then what are some projects that you've got coming?
Yeah, that's good there, Galen. One of the things that I really thought of when Sherry was talking, and I need to do this more frequently throughout my day, those 30-second retreats. I really hold on to, going away out of town and disconnecting from my work and allowing my mind to be free a little bit, even in the morning time as well. But even throughout the day, just 30-second visualizations about my future, about who I am, Sherry, who I desire to be, right? What it's going to be like when I'm in that moment. I'm going to start doing that beginning today, where I'm just pausing more throughout the day as opposed to just running from thing to thing, because it's easy for me to do that. But it's more intentional for me to sit in this space and just reflect and be thankful overall, for sure. So Galen, I'm excited. I got a lot of stuff going on. Folks, my name is Dr. Peter A. James. I'm the high performance coach helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me on most social media platforms at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames. One of the best things, actually one of the hottest things I got going on right now is this holiday sale. Is shiftyourmindset.com/holiday, which really goes into you stepping into this coaching partnership going into 2024. And a sneak peek of that is reflecting on what you were able to accomplish in 2023, leaving behind the things you need to leave behind in 2023, but also stepping into your greatness going into 2024. So if you are even remotely interested on what this needs to look like, please go to shiftyourmindset.com/holiday. I'm sure we'll be able to have a powerful conversation. All right, Galen, right back to you, man.
Fantastic. Well, this has been another incredible conversation. We do this every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And like I said, I continue to think about, and even Dr. Peter thinking about what you just shared. I think about all the multiple times that I've tried to learn how to ski. I've been exactly 4 times, 4 different parts of the country. Each time I've taken lessons, the instructors were amazing. But they all said one thing in common. They all said, Galen, the skis will go where your eyes go. So if you want to ski down the mountain, you have to look down the mountain. If you're constantly looking at the trees, the skis will go where your eyes go. And I think the same is true for life. Instead of looking at the things that you don't want to happen, the skis will go where your eyes go. And the more that you can visualize what you want your life to be, the skis will go where your eyes go. And so many different ways you can get a hold of me. You can follow me on social media. My podcast is called Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We talk to leaders all over the world about the whiskeys they drink, the music they listen to, and what they think it really takes to be an effective leader. But I'm going to challenge you to check out a brand new tool that we're making available specifically for coaches. But this is a tool that will allow you to detail what you want your life to be. You're going to literally paint a picture of what you want your life to be, and then what are the tools that you have to put in place in order to make that a reality. This is great for self accountability. This is really great for coaches working with their clients, helping them detail what that might look like. If you go to the link that we're going to put in the chat, there's going to be a free information session where we're going to look at the tool in more detail. Literally in another hour or so, we're going to have that free information session. But I just challenge everyone to step into their dreams, step into their visions, and live life on purpose. This has been another amazing show. Peter, I think we did all right without Miss Ann being here. We didn't get too crazy.
We didn't crash the car.
We
No,
didn't
no,
crash the car. But I would really encourage everyone to tell a friend, to share this broadcast wherever you're experiencing it, and come back each Saturday where we talk about one element of the book Think and Grow Rich, and we have an amazing guest to help us with that conversation as we did today. So Sherry, thank you so much for your expertise, for your stories, and for sharing your insights to help other people think and grow rich. Again, my name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist. Until next time, I encourage everyone to think and grow rich. Take care.
Thank you so much.